Welcome to In Conversation with Evergreen London Consulting, where we discuss the intersection between businesses and sustainability with a focus on good for the planet and profitability. I'm Natasha Robert. I'm the founder of Evergreen London Consulting and your host. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Jessie Frahm, who is the founder of Planet 1.5. Jessie coaches businesses leader to lead sustainability with clarity. Welcome, Jessie, and thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you. Really excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. I think me too. It's great. So let's start about your work. What does that mean, kind of funding, leading Planet 1.5? What do you do on a day-to-day?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So maybe if we just take a little bit back and I give you my background, I'll get into like how that feeds into what I actually do today. Yeah. So I'm originally from Denmark, so hence the accent, but I have roots that stretches all the way to Greenland, where I spent a big part of my childhood. And I think that really grounded my connection to nature quite early on. And I now lived in London for way over a decade. And my professional journey, I would say, has been nothing but linear, hence why that's really informing what I'm doing today. But I think, I think it's been really exciting, but you shape your own journey, right? So I have a master in finance, and then I pivoted into the creative world. I figured I love finance, but it was probably not what I was going to spend my life on. And then I ended up actually leading large-scale operations, campaigns for global brands. Like I was the most senior producer inside Unilever. I worked with Disney, eBay, through top London agencies. And I think that really gave me a solid commercial background and these really strong communication skills, and also a knack for navigating complexity when it comes to senior stakeholders, which is something we talk a lot about. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, I was then pulled into this world of sustainability, initially through campaign work. So I work with Greenpeace and WWF, and I always make a joke and say I've also been paid real human money from Extinction Rebellion by integrating what I call creative activism into big political narratives that would end up in outlets like The Economist, The Guardian, and we even like deliver campaign work straight into number 10 here in the UK. So I think that experience really lit a fire inside me. It was like, okay, this is like where I get to mix purpose, system thinking, and strategy, all of this business thing come together. So I took that, and then I was starting to lean into what I'm actually doing today. So one side is consulting work. So I started to deepen my technical skills. I became DRI certified. I did the what's called Cambridge Sustainability Program. And then I started consulting across different sectors. So I've been a consultant with Hitachi, H&D, pharmaceuticals like Novo Nordisk, and I say all of these beautiful SMEs that no one would ever have heard of, but I love them dearly. So taking all of this experience, I started seeing patterns in challenges in terms of building a strategy, in terms of integrating and really communicate at a senior level. So I founded what's now called the Impact Accelerator, which is a program that is designed to help sustainability professionals become confident, strategic leaders. And I blend best-in-class tools in terms of the learning journey and also leaning in on compliance, mentorships. We have a weekly mentorship group, and then very much it's like practical learning journey, and there's a community aspect to it as well. So really helping them understand how to build, how to integrate, and then how to scale as like these like equal pillars. So that's the Impact Accelerator, and where I still do consulting, I'm really like pushing the Impact Accelerator at the moment, which is it's such an honor to be a part of other people's journey, I must say.
Yeah, wow. And do you specialize in an industry because you have quite a retail background?
Oh, I would say I'm probably a generalist, and when you work as a consultant, you very much step into a room in business, and I say you need to work with the business experts from technical. So I never worked in construction, but one of my clients is a construction client, but I lean on their knowledge to put my systemic lens on to get to a point of what are the material issues here, how do we then strategize for you guys, how do we then start integrating. So it's a generalist program, but where you of course take your own context into consideration. So I'm very like keen on saying it's a framework more than a how-to.
Okay. Wow, that sounds great. Well, one of the things I saw on your LinkedIn and on your post is you make it real, because the key kind of challenge sometimes with strategy, it's very theoretical, and then kind of, so your impact program is about doing something and delivering. So how do you make that happen in your group?
It's quite interesting. So I think we really start out by taking a step back. So a lot of businesses, they jump straight into tactics when it comes to sustainability, especially also around the supply chain issues, which are really like booming at the moment. So they look for certifications, they then frantically vet their suppliers, they push out like some sort of ESG report more or less successfully. And I would say all of this is important, but it's symptom treating. And it's not root cause. So one of the things I really emphasize in the Impact Accelerator is to hit that pause button and return to what we call the DNA of the business. And businesses don't do this enough. So what it essentially is that we guide the clients to answer, what is your business fundamentally built to do? What problem are you uniquely positioned to solve in the world? And not all problems, but focus in on a problem. So you can be pharmaceuticals, you can be tech, you can be whatever it is, but this clarity really gives you a foundation to be strategic in a way that lasts, to build a business case for something that's long term. And you have it within you, but I think a lot of businesses don't work with their purpose enough. So we define that. I'm really pushing people to be like, what is the one thing that you're solving? And then once we do that, we identified our risk parameters or our materialities, and everything we do have to ladder up to this like core of going in that direction. And it really empowers people to make good decisions as well, right? Because we have clarity about where we're going. So once you have that, then you have clarity around everything, including your supply chain, and you become strategic, and you're no longer sourcing based on cost or compliance, but based on alignment. And you start asking, who are the partners in this that we can actually work with to deliver? So then we go beyond our own strategy, but we start pulling in the right people, the right resources, the right partners, and you build that transparency. But we really need that North Star. So it's very like Excel spreadsheets, defining, working, and doing, like figure what are these like material topics. What structure do I need to build? Do I need to work on Slack? Do I have another communication system? Like, who is this person that is empowered over here to do X, Y, Z? So that's what we do.
Wow. Yeah. So you start with the purpose quite high level, and then you get down to the delivery side of it.
Yeah.
Impressive. Amazing. What's your favorite part of your job?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm on one hand, I'm quite an introverted person, so I get really, people wouldn't think, but like I get quite drained from like pouring all of my energy into people, but I love working with people. And since, back in the days when I was a producer and did marketing, creating the best foundations for people to really thrive in what they do, I think I'm really, really good at, and then see them thrive. So one of my clients, she actually said, Jessie thrive by seeing other people thriving. I think that was really beautifully put, and I think that was really true. For me, but also when I work with creatives, I see it as creating room around people, like physical space to then do, right? So when it was in the creative space, it would be like, give them what they needed to be really good. When we're in this space of sustainability, give them room so that they actually have resources that they can identify. They have people around them that believe in them, and all of these things that actually make it possible to make, and don't go down the drain while you do it, because we have so much pressure as sustainability leaders.
Yeah, it's quite a scary time currently if you look at everything.
Well, a lot of reasons.
Yes, good.
Especially in finance, right? You'll be like, oh.
Yeah, I think on the finance side, it's more, we still very short-term focus in the return on investment and something like that. And that's kind of one of the things that I've been talking to quite a few people. And I think that's where we started talking, is like, how do I shift my mindset from short-term return on investment and making more money and growing faster and doing stuff from a finance point of view to making it sustainable for the longer term. And then integrating the good for the planet, that could mean climate, social, everything that is as part of the purpose you mentioned of the company, and then you deliver on it. And I found that that's been the hardest journey for me, is really about this mindset shift, because I've done 20 plus years in corporate. You get drilled, you need more cash, you need more money, you need more growth, you need at any cost, whatever your purpose. And you can have a varnish of purpose. That's roughly what it is.
I completely agree. One thing I will add though is while, and you and I are similar, probably different ways of doing it, is to define that purpose and what is that long term. But what I think is really important on that is still to define some short-term targets as well. So you need that success both for your own sanity, but actually also to get buy-in from leadership, especially when you go down the finance department. I always joke a little bit, but there's a little bit of truth in the joke. Finance is the hardest team to convince, but once you have them on your side, you have them for life. So what can you do them to be actually, I'm not just here to spend all your money, but I'm here to be a long-term value. Here are some quickish wins while we're focusing on that thing over there as well. So balancing that.
Yeah, love that. I think that's great.
For me, sustainability is about reconnecting with the core of what truly matters, both to us as people, and I work in business, also to business, to nature, to everything around us that's really important. And so it's very much not about carbon and compliance. That's a tool to make it happen, but it's about building systems that enable us to thrive long term. So that means economically, because that's the premise we build our society around, environmentally, nature, and socially. So in that, empowering people to contribute meaningfully to that future.
So what are the actions you're doing on top of your work, but it's to promote it, to kind of breathe and leave it on your day-to-day life?
So if you take my day-to-day life, just really quick insight from the side, we just moved into a house. And when you are ripping out the interior of a house, you realize, I think we have 4 skips coming, and it's this humongous amount of trash going out the door, but also it's really, really old and a lot of it is not functioning. So I'm also kind of bracing myself and saying we're putting love back into the house so that it will thrive long term. But there's a lot of things we're actually doing on a practical level, even on a house build. So there are bricks going down from a bearing wall that will not go under the floor to sustain. We are getting a big roof skylight in, and that insulation will also put under the floor now to insulate better. So there's so many little things of how to repurpose things in your life. How can you be mindful of, I think most people in sustainability, this would be, everybody knows it, but eat locally, support your local stores, not too much meat, if any meat at all. So all of those things as life choices. So figuring what that is in terms of your core purpose, right? So I think that's very much a life. Yeah, that's a life integration of everything, right? Just being mindful living maybe. And then obviously in work, it's very much about reconnecting with the core purpose of work, building out systems that allows for change to actually happen, empower the people around you to be excited for the journey. I remember I did a podcast with someone about how to get senior buy-in, and I think teaching people around how do you always open doors so that you have leverage with people. So instead of always being that add-on that are asking, how can you be the one that are doing a favor for people? That's not a positioning. So I think it's quite broad, but there's lots of little tips and tricks with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, how do you get the conversation going on sustainability for people that, I call it the echo chamber, they're not in it? They are they're sideways, and they know there is something there, and they're not fully denier, but they're not in it. How do you get them into the conversation?
So I've thought a lot about this actually, because I really recently reflected a lot on what I think is the truth is that there's as many worldviews as there are people on the planet, and none of them are wrong, but everybody is seeing it from the lens from which they were brought up and they're living within, and the people they're surrounding themselves with. And I think it's much easier to have a conversation with someone who are different from you and also very different from you when you're applying that. So having an approach which is about questions and curiosity and building in that way, and probably being aware that to some you're very different and you're challenging them at its core, but really being curious and meeting people with curiosity. And also just, it's not always about winning an argument. It's just a matter of understanding. And even the people you don't understand very well, it's like, but they come from a place, and I don't think like 99.99% of people don't come from a place of, I wake up in the morning and I want to be doing harm to anyone. That's not what people do. But then there's things that drive us, and curiosity and like understanding that there are many realities.
And then the last question I ask kind of people is, what would you tell or your 20 years old self to feel differently, do differently, or act differently?
Yeah, I thought this was such a good question. And there's so many, you could answer in so many directions. But I think I would tell my younger self that you don't need to have all the answers. I think this goes really broad into everybody in sustainability today. What you need is the courage to ask better questions. So in sustainability, you're not there to be the expert on everything, but you're there to connect the dots and be able to hold that tension. Sometimes it's really tension, right? And guide people through this complex landscape and trust that you can do that.
Good. So you mentioned at the beginning, you physically lived in Greenland.
Physically lived in Greenland.
Wow. How old were you in Greenland when you lived there?
We were there over 2 times. So I was quite young. I think I was 6 or something when we left. Okay. But it's just,
I still remember it.
Yeah, well, it's one of them. Do you remember, or do you remember from all of the family stories, right? Yeah. So we have family friends that also moved back to Denmark. But I think I remember glimpses of my first school day of like walking to the bus stop. I remember my mom had to hold my hand because it was so windy. So you, as this little person, you could blow away, right? Remember that we did little like snow houses and, all of those things. I remember our neighbor took me on his snow scooter and we went up they call it fjell. It's not really a mountain, but it's like these high hills, and we would drive around a frozen lake and stuff. And was this like beautiful story of being stuck on a boat, on my friend's boat, because of seaweed, and we couldn't move. And then as we were stuck there for an hour, hundreds of seals came up to the surface and peeked around, right? So there's like fractional memories like that I just really treasure.
Yeah.
And then, so I really want to go back because last summer I was sat with a family friend. His name is Geert, and he's originally from Greenland. He's an air pilot. So we have all these like air pilot friends. And he was talking about how when he was a kid and grew up, you could go out in your kayak and you could do fishing, right? But today you can practically sail all the way to Canada. It says something about how the nature has changed. So with that, there's this like crazy story about ice bears. Normally, when we lived there in the 80s, you would see a polar bear in Nuuk, which is the capital city, maybe once every decade. Now you might see one every month. And usually when they come, they would have been swimming for like days and days and days, like weeks, and they've been starved, and they're dangerous when they go into town. And then that's when it goes on the front page that a polar bear got shot, and like, but they're really dangerous to humans. So what do you do? And it just says something about how things has changed and how impacted they are in one of these like incredible nature areas of the world. So my dream is to go up and like make a documentary about the Inuit people and their stories, because there's so many rituals and but also how has nature changed and what does it mean for them, because the 56,000 people is tiny.
I love the fact that you've used all of your learning from your past experience, which wasn't on sustainability, and bring it into the sustainability world. And I like your way of explaining to sustainability echo chamber in terms of saying the curiosity and the, not, there's no right and wrong answer. It's just, kind of, there is the past.
They really are. One of the things I'm really having a lot of conversation about as well is actually, back to the people have their own worldview, but when we're in a corporate context, we talk about, they need people to be a part of like the path and contribute. But if you don't have a vocabulary from where you are to like, I'm sat here in HR, what does it mean to me? So we need to be much, much better at having this educational piece around what does it mean to you? Like, what is sustainability in your role? So that they get tools, not to point at you need to do this, 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 but give people the tools to reflect in context of their view and then contribute in. I think that's really important.
Well, thanks a lot for taking the time.